Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Good morning, everyone. I'm an alcoholic named Tina. You know, I told my sponsor that I was kind of nervous about coming up here, and I know I could share this with alcoholics and those affected by alcoholism. She told me to pray to God that he stick his hand up my butt and use me as a puppet. So that's what I've done, and hopefully it works. I'm going to share a little bit about what it was like. You know, I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I got to see the debonair side of drinking, you know, the suave, the smoothness, you know. I remember my dad as a child he always knew the right things to say, and no matter what happened, he had always managed to somehow smooth it out. And I remember I wanted to be like that, and you know, or at least have someone in my life like that. You know, as time went on, my dad found the program before I took my first drink, really took my first drink, and then he became this thing called an alcoholic, and I was like, oh, that's an ugly word. And I didn't really want to be that, but you know, he still was very smooth, because you know, there's certain things that don't leave the alcoholic when they leave the booze. So I still kind of wanted to be that part of him. I didn't drink too much in high school. I did a couple times. Every time it seems like I drank, I got caught. So you know, it didn't really work out for me so well. But when I graduated, I remember it was on. It was crazy, and you know, I was 18, and I could do whatever I wanted, and everything was just going to be lovely. And I'm not done yet. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks, sweet. You know, I had a blast. I won't lie. I had a blast while I was out there for the most part. But you know, it was up until, you know, I passed that point where I kept on drinking, and I shouldn't have been, that things happened that I wasn't so proud of, or, you know, the next day I had the, oh crap, you know, what's going to happen to me now that I did that. And, you know, I remember every time I drank, I felt better. You know, every time I took that first drink, my nerves were calm. I could do anything. I could fight anyone, or, you know, whatever was going on, I could do it all. And, you know, through growing up in an alcoholic home, my mom, bless her, she was a great actress, and she could put on a show like nobody else. So I got a little bit of that too. You know, I could pretend like nothing had happened, and that everything was just wonderful, and you know, I could do it again. I could go drink again, and with the same people and make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Well, I moved around a lot as a kid, and after my parents had divorced, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but you know, I kind of had the disease in me. I just wasn't drinking, and so when I was drinking, I still continued to move around a lot, because everywhere I went, I eventually caught up to myself, and you know, it's hard to deal with someone like me, especially when I'm always there. I made my last move to Las Vegas, and as most of you know, the bars don't close there. And I got the perfect job. I ended up being a cocktail waitress for this little dive bar that I was able to drink for free, and you know, it just was perfect. And I managed to find a way for me to be in that bar 7 days a week, no matter what. I joined all sorts of pool leagues, you know. I joined dart teams. I did whatever it took for me to be in that bar, you know. And I sometimes would pretend like, oh darn, I have to go to the dang bar today because I have to play darts. And really, I was like, thank God, because I'm hungover and I need to kick this. And I love drinking for a very long time. And don't know. I didn't think about that the last day that I drank. I didn't think how much I loved drinking. I thought, why won't my head shut up? Why is everything coming back to me that I've done in the past? Why is it all just flooding, and just replaying in front of me? And I didn't think that, this was going to happen to me, because I don't do things happen to me. And it's just something that I do. And I don't know, I got to drink and 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 drink that night, and nothing had happened. And the next thing I knew, I was hitting up a bottle of pills, and because I couldn't take it anymore, like my head wouldn't shut off, and one pill still didn't work, and so I took another one, and took another one, and took another one. And I said, screw this, nothing's working, so I'm out of here. And I decided that night to check out, and that was it, and I was done. So I just, finished off the bottle of pills and the bottle of vodka, and wrote a note, I guess. I started blacking out, and I knew I was going to die, and I knew I was ready, and I remember thinking that I don't care if I go to hell, because hell can't be any worse than this. And I don't know, the next day I woke up in the hospital, and my dad was like petting my hair, and he was like, Tiny, because that's what he calls me, he said, you were going to leave without saying goodbye? And I was like, what? And then I just started crying, because it all came down what was really going on. I knew I had a problem. I still wasn't ready to quite say that I was an alcoholic, because I didn't like that word still. And I was a party girl, and whatever. And I got to get released out of that hospital, because I'm still the good actress, that my mom taught me how to be. And I got to tell the people that were interviewing me that, no, I wasn't trying to commit suicide. No, I didn't leave a note. No, and I got a little help from my family, because God bless them. They like to dig me out of holes. And I don't know, I got to go home with my dad, who's in program. And, he told me that I had a choice to make. And they brought me back to Barstow. And I was like, dang, I wasn't supposed to ever come here, end up here. And they told me I had a choice to make, and that I could either go to Ward B and get this all figured out, or I could go to rehab. And I had to do something, though. That was what they were telling me, is I had to do something. And, they try to let me go and let it be easy and everything, and say, oh, well, you can just go to outpatient, because I think they knew that I would figure it out, that I'm not the kind of person that can handle outpatient, or I don't think outpatient can handle me. I don't know, one of the two. But so I started calling some rehabs, because I figured out that, maybe I do have a little bit of a problem, just a little one, though. And, it wasn't really ruining my life like it was everybody else's. It was just, taking it. But I called all these rehabs, and I remember they told me to keep calling and calling and calling every day, because there's no beds open. And I was like, don't you know who I am? I need help. And they didn't care. And they said, oh, that's nice, dear. Call back tomorrow at 8 a.m. And so I did that, and I kept calling, and finally I got in somewhere. And, oh, by the way, I didn't have insurance, so I didn't go to any fancy schmancy rehab. I got to go to St. John of God's, but you know what? That's the kind of place I needed to go. I don't think I could have done it anywhere else, or gotten the message anywhere else. So I remember one day they finally said, yeah, we have a bed for you. Come on down. And my dad and my stepmom brought me on the way to, or after work, and on the way there, I was just crying and crying and crying, and, I decided that I didn't want to go, because I didn't have a problem, and everything's going to be just fine. I'm too young to have a problem. And anyways, I got to the doors, or the gates, rather, and I was so scared. I'm like, oh my God, they've locked these crazy people in. And they're all gathered around the gate, and they're just kind of staring out. They're not really saying anything to me. They're just staring. And I'm like, oh, Dad, this isn't the right place, we must be in the wrong spot. Where's the straitjackets for these people? You know, they're staring and nobody's letting me in. And I decided I didn't want to go in. And he decided that that's too bad because I had already made a commitment to go there, and that's what I was going to do. And so I cried all the way up to the office and cried all the way to my room, and I cried a lot. And I was just, you know, I wasn't really crying because I didn't want to be there. I was crying because I wasn't getting my way. And and I wanted to go home, and he wasn't taking me, and that really sucked. And, you know, I got to spend 90 days there, and I didn't get kicked out or anything, although I should have. I didn't. And I got to meet somebody there, and I got to meet my God there. And I am so grateful for that place because of that, because I remember they would stand in a circle and they would pray. And I was like, these idiots. I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they think that God will hear them in numbers. And they're just chanting away all these Catholic prayers and the serenity thing. And, you know, but what got to happen to me was I got to surrender there, you know. Because when I went in, I still wasn't sure if I had a problem, you know. And I most likely didn't. So I thought, but anyhow, I got to meet my God there, and I got to start building a relationship with him, and I got to learn from people there, you know, and of course there were many a times when I wasn't supposed to be there still because I was not as bad as these people were, and come to find out I was probably worse. But anyways, so when I finally got to the 90-day mark, and they kicked me out. And I ended up not wanting to leave because here comes real life, and I knew it. It was just like when I turned 18. I didn't want to do real life then either, and I still kind of don't. But I'm learning how to do it. When I got out, I went to my dad's because I knew I needed to be where there was some sort of sobriety going on. You know, I had offers to live with other relatives and stuff, but my other relatives can throw them back, and I knew that was probably not going to be where I needed to be. And so I went there, and you know, they really didn't push me into anything because you can't push somebody like me into anything because I'm going to go the other way if you do. And I didn't hook up. I didn't do anything. In fact, I just kind of sat around and did nothing. I didn't get a job. I was just like, hey, this is great. And then it was great for like 3 days. And then I started thinking, and it was horrible. And my mind wouldn't shut off, and okay. And I started getting crazy again, and again, okay, my craziness started coming out some more, and I was just like, it was like I needed something so bad, you know what I mean? And I was just ready to scratch my eyes out because I was so pissed off, and nobody was doing what I wanted them to do, and, you know, except I wasn't going anywhere for anybody to do anything, by the way. And, you know, just things weren't happening for me, and I wasn't making any effort, but still, you know, things had just poof happened. And I found out that there's no magic AA fairy, and I have to do it myself. And so eventually, when the pain got too much, I went to a meeting, and then I went to another meeting, and these ladies that I met in the St. John of God's, they were at this meeting, and I was very excited to see them because what they said was true. You know, they said they were going to be there, and they were getting all touched. And, you know, they were there, and I got to ask one of them to be my sponsor, and I got to work the steps, or start anyways, and it took me a long time to especially get to my 4th step, because I didn't want her to know what I did, you know? I would tell her bits and pieces, but I didn't want her to really know the whole detail, you know? But so I finally got to get through that, and, you know, sobriety has been a blessing. It hasn't been easy by any means. You know, I've got to hit a lot of surrenders, and I still have a lot to go because, you know, I am the alcoholic that I am. I'm very headstrong, very vain, very all of the above, and it's a nightmare. I'm a typical alcoholic woman. And, but, you know, I got to learn that I didn't have to run anymore, and I didn't have to search anymore for what was going to fix me, because there's a solution. And that group got to show me that, and I'm forever grateful to them for that. And I've made great friends, and I still have the same sponsor, and today I get to share with you that I've been sober for a year, 2 months, or 3 months. 3 months, sorry. And it's good. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Tina. Next, we have Mark from Barstow.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm an alcoholic. My name's Mark. Best thing I can tell you is I haven't had a drink since February 15th of 2003, and for that I'm grateful. It's an honor and privilege to be one of your speakers this morning. And you know, when Tony called me up and asked me, that ego kicked in, and I thought, yeah, sure. And a couple days later, I thought, what the hell did I do? You know, there's going to be a lot of people there. But this convention is part of my story. Last year I was here, and I took my 30 days at the countdown on Sunday, and it really springboarded me into a good year of sobriety, what I have right now, and told me to tell you what it's like, what happened, and what it's like now. And what it was is I was raised in Barstow by a very good family, good people. My dad was a hard-working construction man. Don't really remember him without a beer between his legs, but he was a good man, and I was pretty much the apple of his eye, and I had pretty much a fairy tale. When I was growing up, it was pretty much a fairy tale, you know. We had horses, I raced go-karts, we did all sorts of things, you know, and that man was my best friend. And led pretty much a sheltered life. I went to Catholic school with the same 15 people from first grade to 8th grade, you know. I mean, there's 7 Chicano guys and 7 Chicano girls and me, and I pretty much thought I was Mexican until I was 14 or 15. But it was in the 60s, and when I got out of that school and went to high school, that small circle of friends I had kind of parted. We had 2 high schools, and I was there, and I had a hard time fitting in. I didn't know anybody, and it was pretty rough. But there was a couple other misfits there that asked me to, you know, come over and have a couple drinks with them one day, and man, it was just I got invited to do something, so I went for one thing, and they had some Colt 45, and I drank a couple of them, and I found a new circle of friends, and I started fitting in, and life started charging ahead, and I started buying bell bottoms and, you know, tie-dye shirts. I was getting right in that 60s deal, and I got through high school, and by the time I graduated, I was pretty much a self-proclaimed hippie, a full-blown alcoholic with a pretty good drug problem, and my life was starting, you know. I was thrown out into the real world, and you know, life was all about going out in that desert and partying and raising hell, chasing women, and just having a good time. That's what it was all about. And that was the summer of '72, and you know, right around Christmas time, I used to always hang out with older guys, and one of them was his birthday, his 21st birthday, and I got snuck in the bar that night, and we raised hell. We had a good time. The problem was I never made it out of the parking lot. I was in my old Volkswagen and got pulled over, got a 502, and got thrown in jail that night, and got out the next morning, and I was real sick, and my dad came home from work, and we had one hell of an argument. It was pretty much one-sided. I was too sick to do any arguing, and he chewed my ass out, and he popped open a beer, and 5 minutes later he died of a heart attack, and that was rough, you know. And I thought I had a part of that, and but that didn't stop me, you know. Authority figure was gone. I just changed gears, and I just took off. And about a year later, I was out in the desert with a bunch of friends partying, and we were coming home in the evening, and coming down my street, listening to music real loud, probably some Skinner, you know, something like that, and this guy was pulling out of his driveway, and his little 5-year-old son, about the same age as my son, came chasing after him and ran past that car, and we hit that little boy, and he was killed. And I pretty much, I was worried about if I was going to get in trouble. I wasn't driving, so it wasn't my fault. But this last year, I've got to think about that a lot. And life went on, and when I turned 21, I found the bars, and I loved the bars. I love the dark bars. I love the little pool tables, the lights over them. I love the smell. I loved everything about it. I loved the bar fight, because if you missed one guy, you hit another. It was all good. And I had a job, and I was working swing shift, and got off there, and, you know, good thing about swing shift, there's still a couple hours left at the bar, and I went to a place called, went to a nightclub called Steak Eaters. It was a bar. They like to call it a nightclub. And I went in there, and one of the guys said, "Man, you got to see this girl, man. She just moved here from Missouri. She's beautiful." So I ate a Quaalude and drank a few whiskeys, and I went over and asked her to marry me, and then I introduced myself, and we had a whirlwind romance. I found my soulmate. This gal could drink just like I could, and I was in heaven. And 6 months later, we were married, and we had a little girl on the way, and she quit drinking, and it was like, what? What do you mean you ain't gonna drink no more? And anyway, she quit, and I didn't, and we had that little girl, and life started getting good. You know, I'm not gonna say I quit, but I tried to control it. You know, I tried to be that husband and father. It was the life I wanted. You know, I wanted that father. I wanted to be a good father and a good husband. I had the house with a little white picket fence. And a few years later, another little girl was born, and it was pretty darn good. You know, work was going good. I was involved in the union. I ran the Christmas parties. In fact, at this place here, we had several of them. I ran their Toys for Tots. Golf tournaments, you know, I was a bigwig, man. The ego was kicking, and everything was great. And that controlled drinking started. I wasn't controlling it anymore. Little by little, it started controlling me. And they say this is a progressive disease, and it's sneaky. And it started kind of downsliding there towards the end of the '80s. And not really sure when it turned on me, but we had a couple more kids. And what I can tell you is it started getting bad. It started getting very bad. And, you know, I was pretty well respected at work. I went from respect to being the joke at work. And, you know, life was, like Tina said, you know, it was, you don't got to die to go to hell. And that's pretty much what it turned out like. After 9/11, a few days later, my oldest daughter joined the Navy. I don't know if that was just to get out of the house, but I was very proud of her. I saw her off, and her dad was a alcoholic with a real bad drug problem, and said goodbye to that girl. And that was hard, you know. She's going to serve her country. And what happened, to the best of my knowledge, is about a little over a year ago, that little girl, my wife and I went down to San Diego to see her off. She was going over to overseas, you know, to fight a war. And I was saying goodbye to her, and I looked at her, and she knew what I was, and I knew what I was, and I was full of shame. And I had no dignity left, and it wasn't a good deal. And on the way home, I told my wife I needed help. And that strong-willed woman I married, you know, 22 years before from Missouri wasn't all that strong no more, man. I done beat her down, you know, and it just, she said, okay. She didn't get too excited because we tried to go through this before. But a few days later, she took me to detox and dropped me off. And she had told me later she had probably the best night's sleep she'd had in a long time that night. And I was in there, and when I was in detox, after a few days, I went and looked in that mirror, and I looked at those black eyes and that skin you could see through, you know, and I thank God, because I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a spiritual experience, but I realized I had a chance, another chance, something I never thought I'd have, you know. And I went from that detox to a treatment center, and you know, I honestly didn't think I was going to be able to stay sober. I just needed a break, you know. I'd done it before. I could stay sober in treatment centers. I just didn't know how to do it on the outside. But what happened in that treatment center was a panel came from H&I, a couple guys came in there and they told me about Alcoholics Anonymous. And I listened, and they happened to be from my hometown. And the next day I went and talked to a counselor, and she told me that, you're a pretty sick puppy, Mark. If you don't hook up with somebody, you're going to die, and it's probably going to be pretty quick. And one more thing, that same counselor, and this is big, and this has been big in my sobriety, took my wife to an Al-Anon meeting the day before I got out of treatment. And I didn't know what Al-Anon was. I said, well, have a good time or whatever. I didn't know it was going to be so big in my sobriety, and it's been, thank God, thank God for Al-Anon. Anyway, I got out of there, and the same night, I didn't take a vacation after treatment. I went to a meeting that night, and I went to the podium, and I said, my name's Mark. I'm all screwed up. I need help, and I put out my hand, and these guys grabbed it, and I got a sponsor that night. And, I just wanted physical sobriety. I just wanted to be physically sober, something I couldn't do for over 30 years. I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea my life was going to change. These guys told me, if you want something you never had, you got to do something you never did. Get in the car, follow us. And I did that, and they were getting ready for this convention, and this was something, I was sobering up when we were doing things for this convention, and I got a chance to go down to the airport and picked up the spiritual speaker for the Sunday meeting last year. And I'll never forget this man. If you've ever seen Honest John, you wouldn't forget him either. He, yeah. Anyway, I remember sitting at my friend Honus's house on the patio, and I was talking to this guy, and I don't know, had 25 days sober, and he told me something that I probably heard before, but I heard it that day, and he said, Mark, you never have to drink or use again. And that stuck with me. And, my life's changed. My life's changed. Well, 3 days after the convention last year, I went home, took a nap, and ended up in Kansas at an AA group over there. It's been a whirlwind. This whole year's been a whirlwind. And I've met some great people. And, I got commitments right off the bat. They got me busy. They got me involved in this deal. And one of them was on Wednesday nights, we go to a little treatment center down the street here. And I love that place because, I can relate with you. I can respect you people with 5, 10 years, 3 years. You got something I don't have. But when I walk in that treatment center and I see those guys that, they're letting out a detox to come to a meeting that don't want to be there. They're squirming, they're sweating. The guy that's getting his 30 days, those are the guys I could relate to right then. And I still can. And I got a commitment to go to that. I got on a panel. I was only a couple months sober, and that's my favorite panel. And later on today, I get to pick up a couple of those guys and bring them here, a couple of guys I'm working with. And, that wife, those kids, I always wanted to be that husband and father. And today, prayer and meditation is a big part of my life. I get up at 4:45 in the morning, and I go with the guys, and we have prayer and meditation, and then we go on our way to work. And I've been, what I pray for is just make me a better person than I was yesterday, a better father, a better husband. Thank you for what you've given me and what you've taken away. Because the God I had was a vengeful God. He had a big hammer, and I was scared of him. But what I learned in this program is I got a loving God. I got a friend. I got somebody I only have to pray to in the morning. And at night, he's pretty much with me all the time. I'm going to tell you, I was on my knees before this deal, though. And, for the last 3 months at the hall, we have a little deal up there for birthdays. And for the last 3 months, it's been a pretty neat deal. My wife was on it in January. She got her year in Al-Anon. Mine was on it last month. I got my year. And my 2 little kids are on it this month. They're going to have a year in Alateen. And that's my little girl Presley. She just turned 10, and she has a little sponsee. And I have a little boy named Sam, and like I say, I'm busy. I go to prayer meditation, I go to work, and I usually go to a meeting and I don't get home till late. But there was one night he came running out and he jumped in my arms and he said, "My name's Sam. I'm the son of an alcoholic." And I didn't have to be ashamed. It was okay. You know, I tried to hide this from my family, and now our family's in program. And we live this deal. This is our life. It's been a good year. It's been a good year. That lady that I married is sitting here tonight. That's a big deal for me today. Because this is the first time we've really got to spend a weekend together since I've been sober. And it's a neat deal. And man, I've been nervous as hell about coming up here all weekend. And after the guys took off on the bikes, I went up to take a shower, and I got out of that shower, and there was 2 cards there. And I opened them up, and they basically said, "I love you," you know. And it's a miracle, man. My life's a miracle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And now we have Dee Dee.
Good morning, I'm Dee Dee and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Dee.
As you can tell, I'm a senior, so we'll get that off my chest or whatever. My drinking career started when I was about 19. And I was in junior college, and boy, was that fun. I sure had a heck of a hangover the next day, though. And I grew up in a upper middle class family. My parents were alcoholics, but I just thought they were heavy drinkers at family reunions and stuff like that. And when I was a kid, I'd say, I'm never going to be like them. They're idiots and whatever. So, and I have 3 younger brothers, so you know the family history. I got married, I was 20, in the 60s. And so that's the hippie years. So I'll go by this briefly. My first husband, I did the other stuff, drank beer once in a while. I was married 9.5 years, and I said, I can't. I don't love him anymore, and he didn't love me because he liked to do parties, and we won't get into that either. Boy, I'm doing a condensed version, aren't I? So anyway, I divorced him. And I was, between my first and second husband, it was just my son and I. And I did a lot of drinking and I'm starting my steps now, and going through the 4th step, I put my son, God bless him, through hell. I'm surprised he'd get in the car, I'm from Northern California, so driving from Redwood City to Mountain View, getting on that damn freeway, having a semi-trunk honk at me because I pulled right in front of him. That was one thing that God saved us. So anyway, and then my son introduced me to George. That's my husband. And George had quit drinking in 78, and he'd gotten into a little trouble, but this isn't his story, it's mine. Whew. So we got together in 1980. I proposed to him in 1984. I said, I'm a good tax write-off. We didn't do too much drinking. We did the smoking. He liked to smoke the stuff, and I did too. So there wasn't too much drinking in those days. And when he retired from Redwood City, Northern California, he liked the desert, so we moved down here. So one of his statements was, well, you know, we can't get that smoke stuff. And I said, that's okay. And I should have realized then that I did have a problem. I said, there's got to be a liquor store someplace. So that would pacify me. So, God, I've been here 11 years. Doesn't seem like it. And in 1998, I started noticing a change in him. He was 16 years older than me. And I thought it was just old age, and didn't realize that he was in the first stages of dementia. Excuse me. So then, that's when my closet drinking started. And so I'd go down to this. He'd like to go to the grocery store with him, and I said, "Oh, let me go." Because that's when I could buy my bottle and hide it someplace. And then when he was finally really diagnosed with that dementia, I really started drinking heavy. And one thing about my drinking and my thinking is that I can drive. Well, I was going to take an acquaintance down to the, because I live across the street from Levitt's. I was going to take him down to the corner gas station. He said, "Oh, let me just ride my bike." "Oh, no, I can do it." So I pulled into the gas station, and son of a gun if I didn't hit where the, prices of the gas is. Totaled that car. Totaled it to the max. This was in 2000. And needless to say, the cop came and arrested me, and I had to get a social worker to go out at night that night to take care of my husband. So thank God he didn't realize what was happening, because his brain was already diminishing. And so when they woke me up, that jail is a scary thing. Boy, it's scary. They don't give you any pillow or blanket, even at Christmas. So anyway, I live in a fourplex. So I called my friend that lived behind me, and I said, "Doris, can you come and pick me up?" And she said, "Where are you?" And I said, "In jail." She knew I had a drinking problem, but I wasn't an alcoholic. I was just a heavy drinker. I went on a lot of binges. I wasn't an alcoholic. So God bless her, she came and picked me up. And I had to go to that DUI school. And for 4 months, I was clean and sober. And I had to go to my class the other day, and I asked the counselor there, whatever you call him, I said, "How come they didn't want me to go into AA the first time?" She said, "It's probably because you weren't ready." So needless to say, I was good, didn't drink, and still trying to lose the weight from the chocolates the first time around. I went on a chocolate binge. And so then, and that was 2000. In 2001, my husband passed away at home. And I would drink at night when I knew he was asleep. And when he passed away at home in September of 2001, man, I hit that bottle. And there used to be a joke in the family, it's got to be 5 o'clock somewhere in the world. Because I always start my drinking around 3 o'clock. Well, I started in the morning, and I'd go for 3 days, just drink, drink, drink. And a friend of mine, we'd call it the run. "I'm making a run, do you want anything?" So we'd put the money on the fence. And I was good, I didn't drive until 2003. And drunker than a skunk, I swear to God. And I was going to a church function of all places. And I remember drinking. This is a blackout. And then, thank goodness I didn't total that car. It still runs. And so I called up my friend Doris again. She said, "No." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Dee Dee." I said, "Yeah." So that was January 13th of last year. January 15th, I called up central office and talked to Betty. And she says, "I think you better call back tomorrow." And I looking under the kitchen sink, and I saw still a half a pint. I said, okay, good, I need this one. So I drank that. I called her up, and that was January 16th, like I said. She said, do you know where the tumbleweed is? And I said, I have no idea. Well, it's close to where I live. So she said, come to a meeting tonight. And it was a Thursday, and it was a candlelight meeting. And I said, oh, praise the Lord. Nobody can see me. I looked like hell. I felt like hell. I had this shake so bad. And I sat way in the back, way in the back. And Betty says to me, well, now you know, when they raise your hand, I said, do I have to do that? And she said, no, if you don't want to. I said, good. And so after the meeting, she said, you know where it's at now. It's up to you. So I've been coming to the tumbleweed ever since. That's my hometown. I mean my home base, or home group, whatever you want to call it. And I was supposed to go to court in February, and they postponed it till March. Then I get it. And so I went to the courthouse on that day. They didn't have me in the dumb computer. I thought, ooh, I can sneak through this one. Well, then I get a letter from the district attorney's office. I guess that's who it is. And saying, you mandatory. If not, if you don't show up, you'll get, there'll be a warrant out for your arrest. Well, I don't want no cop coming to my front door. So I went there and I got a PD, and he said 45 days in jail. I thought, oh, God. I said, I've got 2 cats to take care of. I can't do 45 days in jail. And so then they said, he said, well, he talked to the judge. He knocked it down to 30. He said, maybe you can do weekends. I said, yeah, but how am I going to get down there? Because I wanted to be as legal as I could at this time. And so anyway, I was telling my friends at the tumbleweed, they're not my friends, they're my family. I love you all. And one of the ladies there took up a collection, so I got to do community service. And you want to know anything about the golf course or golf balls, I can teach you. And I worked 3 days a week. I started October 8th, and I got released. I call it released November 14th. I'll be going to that DUI class till next year, but that's okay. But I'm 61, and in the big book, in the stories, it's 13, chapter 13, I guess you call it. A lady came into AA at the age of 60, or 65. So there's no age requirement to come into AA. I finally admitted to myself I am an alcoholic. I am powerless over it. My higher power, who I choose to call God, is back in my life. And it's just an awesome feeling. I've had 13 months sober, clean and sober. And after I got my ear chip, I woke up one morning and I said to myself, and my cats, I talk to them a lot. I said, you know, the next chip you're going to get is your 2-year. Boy, this is your life now, Dee Dee. If you want to stay clean and sober, this is a one day at a time. And I'm not saying I wake up feeling like, you know, little, whatever. I wake up and I take care of my cats first. They're always, well, George found them. They were abandoned, one up north, one down here, so they mean a lot to me. And I take care of them, and then I sit down and I do my meditation. I'm reading the scriptures now in the Bible, which I'd never done before. And with my friends over here and back there, I love you all, and there too. and all the new people that I'm meeting. And this is an awesome, shared at one meeting. Last year, I got suckered into staying for the dance. I think I'm still sore. But I looked around, I told somebody, I said, I've never seen so many happy drunks, sober, and having such a good time. I said, this is an awesome life. I really like it. And God kept me alive for some reason. I don't know why. Because when I was 6 months sober, I said, God, if you want me now, you can have me. And I got up the next morning, I said, well, I guess I'm not ready, or you don't want me yet. So there is a purpose, and maybe this might be it right here. Who knows? But I love you all, and I want to thank you for helping me stay sober one more day. And I'm a very emotional person, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee Dee. And we have Bob from Victorville.
I'm an alcoholic named Bob. Jeez. Yeah. My story is pretty much like everybody else's. I started drinking. Well, actually, my parents, I was real sick with asthma. And back in the 50s, my parents used to give me alcohol to help me go to sleep. And, they didn't know any better. Both my parents were alcoholics. And for a matter of fact, everybody in my family was an alcoholic. My aunts, my uncles, everyone drank. And I actually started drinking in 1966 when I was in high school. And when Pete Peterson was up here talking yesterday, he sounded just like me. I discovered booze and women all in one night. I was at a high school, same way I was at a high school dance. And I remember going out in the parking lot and drinking some wild turkey and thinking, damn, that's the shit, I went back in that dance and thought it was 007, James Bond himself. And I was off and running. I remember when I was in high school, I drink on the weekends. We'd go to them cater parties and stay till the beer was gone, or we were on the ground one. And I drink periodically in school. I had them little metal cigar tubes full of wild turkey, and I drink electronics and what have you. And but still, it was more controlled. I went to high school and college at the same time. 14 and a half hours a day for 2 years when I was a junior and a senior, and graduated college before high school. And how I made it, I don't know. God really graced me that way, I'll tell you. I didn't really have to study that much. But at any rate, so I did that through high school and college. And after I graduated college, I got married. And my wife was pretty much normie. And I had a job where I did service calls. I was a mechanic, a diesel mechanic for CAT, and I did service calls. And I remember I'd go drinking every day at lunch. I'd go have a liquid lunch, and I came home from work, I'd drink. And, and that went on for quite a few years. And I left that job, and I went to, I was living in Lakewood, and I got a job in El Segundo, and one of the guys I went to high school with, he was an alcoholic already by then, like I wasn't. Then my life was really centered around the liquor store in the morning. We'd leave for work, and we knew which liquor store we were going to hit at 6 in the morning, get our Heblin's cocktails for travelers on the way to work, because even though it was only 19 miles, it was like a 2-hour drive to get there. And so we drink on the way to work, and we had 3 bars across the street from that refinery, and we'd go out there, and every day we'd have our liquid lunch. And, that went on for quite a few years. I'd work 16 hours a day, and every time we had a break, we'd go out them gates and go drinking. And it was very well accepted there because everybody drank. Everybody drank. Even, I remember my boss got drunk in the refinery and ran the company truck down into one of the oil storage areas, and didn't even know where in the hell he was at. And he didn't get fired or nothing. I mean, that's accepted. Pretty well accepted in there. And so by that time, I got a divorce. I was married for 11 years, and it cost me divorce. And I stayed single for a few years, and I still was at the same company. And, I got married again, and she was a normie. And I stayed at that company, and then I got transferred up to Northern California, and I was working offshore, off on the rigs, and I was taking a helicopter to work and all that kind of stuff. And then I did that for a few years, and they asked me if I wanted to teach school, and I said yeah. So when I was a school teacher, then I was taking the whole class out drinking, at lunch. I was taking them all out, and so it went, and I took early retirement out of that job, and since I worked a lot of hours, my wife didn't realize how much I was drinking. And so when I left that job, I went to Palm Springs, about a nightclub there. And then so I'd have an excuse to drink. And I drank 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for years. And after a few years, my wife says, you sell this place, we're getting a divorce. And I sold it, and we got a divorce. And in chapter 3, when we read chapter 3, it tells about all the crazy things we did about trying different methods of proving if we were or were not alcoholics, taking a trip, not taking a trip, the big geographic and all that. I did all that stuff. I did it all. And at that time, I left California and I went to Arizona and hooked up with a contractor, I did his electrical for him, rather, and he drank and I drank and it was on. Found the perfect job, worked with him 8 years, and, and so it went, and so my mom came back to the state, and I came here to take care of her. And I was still drinking and what have you. And I went and got in trouble here for under the influence everything, basically. And, they wanted me to go to Prop 36, and I went to it for a little while. And, I just wasn't ready yet. And I said, oh, the hell with them. I'll see you when I see you. And I seen them about a year and a half later. But I'll tell you what, during that year and a half, I was really one miserable person. My drinking took me to places where I never thought it would, because my idea of an alcoholic was somebody that was, destitute, a wino, you have the Skid Row bum kind of image. Just because you're working and you have a house and cars and all that stuff, you don't look at yourself that way. But actually, I was a spiritually sick person, Like one of my friends was saying the other day, you're spiritual beings in a human body, and when you go out and go drinking and what have you, you don't tell your spirit to sit in the car while you go in the bar. You know what I'm saying? And you take that spirit with you everywhere you go. And I was a spiritually sick person. Making a long story short, though, I prayed to God really hard for some kind of help, because I was at the point of suicide. I just couldn't stop. I wasn't asking God to get me out of any messes I got myself into. I wasn't asking for anything like that. All I was asking God for was His will in my life to help me quit drinking, because I didn't have the skills to do so. And you talk about miracles. The next day I was in St. John of God, and it's supposed to take like forever to get in there. I was in there in 1 hour. And I'll tell you what, when I walked through those gates, it felt like a 900-pound gorilla got off my back. I was so happy, I walked through those gates because I knew it was over. I damn near cried, or I really was crying. I was just so happy because I knew it was over. I surrendered, it was over. I knew it, and because I knew I was powerless. My life was unmanageable. Your life's unmanageable when the county's got to run it for you. And so I went in there, and God see to it that I had a sponsor. The first day I went in there, I went in the chapel and I prayed. We had a Wednesday night stag meeting. I got me a sponsor that night, and he worked. I read that big book every day, 2-3 hours every day, 7 days a week, and we worked through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And but I thank God for that. He's really changed my life. It's through God's grace I'm here right now. It's not through mine. And so I went to St. John's, and after I was there for around 50-something days, I left that program. I didn't get in any trouble or anything. I just went to the outpatient, and I completed the outpatient. In fact, it's supposed to be a 26-week program, and I left there in 2 months. I graduated the program. But what I did do, I started going to a lot of meetings when I got out of there. I went to 3 and 4 meetings a day. And, my probation officer, she seen that I went to over 180 meetings in 90 days. Well, I went in there, and she posted that on the board. I didn't know they were going to do that, so I just happened to walk in, and she said, you know, you've been to a lot of meetings. And she goes, I know you rode your bicycle to all of them. I said, that's right. And so she goes and she posted on the board, said this guy made 180 meetings in 90 days, so I don't want to hear no excuses. And I was going to hope you don't find out who did this because you're going to kill me. You know, it's just had something I had no control over. But it feels really good to do the right thing. You know, I still go to a lot of meetings. I know meetings by themselves will not keep a person sober. You have to work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have an awesome God. He does rock. He's changed my life so much. You know, I'm now employable again. Before I wasn't. I never thought a person could drive themselves to where they weren't, but I did. I've really gotten involved in this program. I have 3 commitments. I have a secretary at the Little House and coffee and H&I at the Tumbleweed. And I still spend a lot of my time in a fellowship. And they say changed everything, and I changed everything. I even put my other foot in a shoe first. You know, I reprogrammed myself. You know, they say when you come to AA, it's like listening to a country western record in reverse. You get your dog back, you get your job back, you get your house back. You know what I'm saying? And that's very true. It's really a true statement. I've never, you know, I got to tell you, I've never had so much fun in this program. I used to think, you know, I'd rather be dead than be sober, and I was dead wrong. You know, I have more fun in sobriety than I've ever had in my life. You know, and I'll tell you another gift is right now I'm supposed to be doing weekends for the city of Victorville like Dee Dee. Like Dee Dee had done. But I'll tell you what, you know, I went there and told them I was going to speak at this convention, and they drink. Even my boss drinks, but they're more normies. And he said, no problem. They gave me the day off. I went in there just to show up, and he said, I'll see you later, and that was it. And I'm still getting credit for going to jail right now. And that's pretty awesome. That's God working in my life. And I just can't say enough good things about this place. So you people, I got real friends in here. I help other alcoholics all the time. I hang with other alcoholics. I don't see nobody I used to see, and I don't care to see them, actually. You know, I have a really good time. And even when I have to work weekends, you know, I go there, and if it wasn't for this program, I couldn't complete St. John of God. I couldn't have did my weekends like I'm doing. I couldn't have did a lot of things I'm doing right now. You know, my mom's 81 years old, and you know, I did this for myself. A benefit of that is it's priceless. It means more than anything in the world to me, and that's have my mother know that I'm doing the right things, because I put her through hell. You know, we think when we're out there, we're not hurting nobody. You're hurting people, believe me. My mom's so happy now, she don't know what to do with herself. And that makes me feel, that gives me something inside money can't buy. You know, I wouldn't take all the money in the world for what I put my mom through. You know, and that's the difference. And it makes me feel good to help other people. You know, I was going to say, when I was in St. John of God, I had a very good sponsor, but he had went out, and that kind of devastated me. So I ran sponsorless for a while, but I got me another sponsor last month, and he has 27 years in the program, and his wife has 25 years in the program. And when I chose that sponsor, I wanted somebody that was happy. You know, I wanted what they got: serenity, peace. He'd been in the program a long time. I knew he was working this program because I wanted what he has. You can tell that, you know, him and his wife are very happy, and they're very at peace with themselves, that inner peace. And so I asked that person to be my sponsor, and he is. And we have a lot in common, you know. And he said he was going to put a 350 horsepower Chevy engine and a little Sunbeam Alpine. I knew he was the bomb. You know, we have a lot in common, and that's good, you know. That's the way I think it should be. But I can't say enough good things about this place. It's the smartest decision I ever made in my life, you know. And that's one thing, when you come here, you can always have your misery back, and I don't want it, because it sure scares the hell out of me to even think about it. It's one thing I do have is a good memory, and all I have to do is just think about it for a second, and all that self-guilt and misery comes back, and I don't like it. You know, I just flat don't like it, so I choose to stay here, and where I'm very happy, very happy. You know, if I was miserable, I wouldn't be here. I'd still be out there in my disease. But this takes what it takes. You know, it took me a half century to get here, but I don't know much longer I got, but I want to hang in there and try and become a long timer. Well, I thank you very much.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.